Malaysia is never shy from one political crisis to another political drama unfolding. It has been a year since the change of administration in 2020 that saw the change of government. Has that event stalled the media reforms in Malaysia? Hi, I'm Norman Goh and you're listening to Bicara Minggu Ini. In this episode of Sheraton Move 1 Year On special series, I speak to Radzi Razak, journalist and spokesperson of Gerakan Media Merdeka, GERAMM, taking a look, a review of 1 year on of the Perikatan Nasional administration and how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted media landscape in Malaysia. Is the progress stalled and reform stagnated? Here's what he has to say. Okay, thank you so much, Radzi, for joining me today. And as I started this special series on Sheraton Move 1 Year On, I think much has been said about how and what had happened and things like that. Then a lot of people have forgotten about the role of media in this kind of in the whole situation, because media has been the very important part of the society of recording the history of what happened, not just 2018, not just what happened in 2020, I mean many decades ago. So how has it been for the press over the past year? So notwithstanding the contrast between Pakatan Harapan or Perikatan Nasional and now Perikatan Nasional, what is your take?
Okay, so thank you, Norman, for inviting me again on your show. So for us in GERAMM and we think that this year has been affected by the pandemic mostly. If you take out the contrast about the government, it's about pandemic, which in part does make the situation on media freedom much worse than before. It is fair to say that, having said that, it's fair to say that the Perikatan Nasional, the government didn't really help to elevate or to help the media freedom or the struggle for media freedom. So the first thing that we found out is it's really hard to get a prompt and satisfactory reply on many issues from PN leaders. I mean, like, okay, you could say that we could blame other politicians as well, but they are in the government, so they are in the best position to help to explain the matter, because we have been like in the dark about like many we are the public demands explanation on the matters such as announcements.
It's like how difficult for when the public has been hitting out at the press for the reports and things like that, and rightly you have pointed out, Radzi, that the access of information and trying to get the responses of clarification from the government has been sometimes futile.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, we do have like almost daily PC by a senior minister, who to explain what is happening. But the problem is it only attended by the official media, which is credit to their part. They did ask a lot of questions, but there are some issues that couldn't get clarification until later. I mean, like throughout the year, I think we get mostly most of our responses via social media, or mostly Twitter or Facebook, because you don't really meet, you can't ask questions, and even if you even we do have numbers of the leaders, but they didn't answer. It's as simple as that, which is a problem. So, and this is what we don't like. I mean, the term official media. I mean, like today it happens, like the vaccine, the second phase of vaccine access came today. I mean, like several photographers were like being banned even though they arrived there, even though KJ has been sending invitation since yesterday, because only official media can allowed to take photos. I mean, like it's funny how it happens. It doesn't help the media freedom at all. I mean, if you can't even cover an event, you can't even take pictures of such events, it's how can you do more?
Isn't it the irony of what these people in power actually expected out of media, and yet they don't even provide the fair or even equitable access to the press? It doesn't matter whether it's from an official media. Well, I think a lot of people fail to understand the differences between the different colors of the media text we have, and it really restricts the access And at the end of the day, the people will be, blaming the press again for not providing enough sufficient information. And yet, it's not the government who's going to be blamed for the insufficient information in the press. Like what some ministers have been blaming the press for. The headlines are not being clear, and then media has been blamed again and again for just because the readers did not read. So yeah, these are kind of things. Well, I'd like to move to what you have mentioned earlier. The thing is, over the year, the pandemic has affected the media industry and journalists. Now, we've seen in the last election, the Sabah state election, so even one or two of the journalists were infected by COVID-19. So what about the welfare of the press members when some of them were exposed to hazards of COVID-19 infection?
I mean, we really embody the spirit of kita jaga kita, because most of them just don't care. I mean, the organizers maybe just don't care. I mean, like, we have been like, to the credits of our media brothers, we have been trying to help to not make the matters worse. I mean, we have like after Sabah election, we have like several press conference before the MCO 2.0. So we do have several friends being infected, and yeah, they help themselves, and the company have obviously helped with the health benefit. But none of it comes from the politician. I mean, my good friend, a photographer from a newspaper, were like being held in my apps because he was he was found positive from a press conference. There's nothing much being handled. And yes, they before for the vaccine, I want to touch on the vaccine for a bit. I mean, like there are demands from several of the group to get vaccines for media, because media is part of the frontliners. But we have been like engaging with the Ministry of Health, but we understand fully that frontliners should get the vaccine first. But the problem now is that you see the news report from today saying that politicians are like jumping queues left and right. So it's really, and these things are right couldn't they couldn't be bothered about the welfare of the media people. So it's really regretful.
Yeah, I mean, we've also seen, how netizens and also the public responded, and they were slamming the journalists for crowding, especially during press conferences and all that, But the organizers failed to provide a safe space for journalists to work. Because at the end of the day, they still need to report. If the reports are not out, the public will scold them again. So basically the press are in a dilemma. In contrast with Indonesia actually has placed the journalists, the members of the press, as among the frontliners together with the healthcare workers, healthcare professionals in receiving the vaccination program, and how this is really quite embarrassing, seeing how Indonesia treats their press and compared to Malaysia. What do you think?
Yeah, true. I mean, like, if I want to compare Indonesia, I wouldn't just look on the vaccine allocation. Even on the vaccine, when their president is receiving the vaccine, you see how they could organize the photographers. I mean, obviously Indonesia have like strong media sense of media freedom, and even a media council. So you could see how professional and local, international and local photojournalists and journalists could cover the event without any problem, because it will help like better than what happens during our Prime Minister getting vaccines. Lots of reports on what shouldn't happen, and there was a complaint from one of our friends where like private secretary of the Minister of Health that's scolding and shouting press who were like doing a stand-upper without that didn't even disturbing the event. So you see how these two things, how the Indonesian government has were doing it like that. Basically, it's the same event. The highest top leader in the country getting vaccinated, and you see how different it could be, and it shows in the picture. You see how when our Prime Minister receiving it, there you see like this slightly weird angle video screen cap was being used as a photo, and you see how Indonesian President pictures were like much better, and it was taken by local international photojournalists. So,
Well, at the end of the day, our Malaysian politicians and Malaysian leaders should not blame anyone but themselves. Looking back, your organization, GERAMM, has been very vocal in numerous incidents, such as investigation on Al Jazeera's documentary team, a sedition investigation on the book Rebirth, Reformasi and Resistance and Hope on the Road to New Malaysia, where previously published articles in the book were banned. This series and also a series of retrenchments in the media industry, and more recently, Malaysia Kini's federal court verdict on readers' comment. Is this a pattern telling us that there is a crackdown on the press?
well, the government who is weak and always wanted to control the narrative will always try to do things that will crack down on media freedom. I mean, that's a beast. And what is happening could be seen as that, but I don't think there's like too much concerted effort being pushed on that, because most of them are like trying to get rich and trying to get away, trying to control the power, and they don't want really to show it, because eyes are fixed towards Malaysia. But if it's not a crackdown, then it's an effort to undermine press freedom in the country. At least
it's like a telltale signs of a dictatorial kind of way of a very restrictive to the press. I think the numbers of the World Press Freedom Index in Malaysia for this year will be badly affected, looking at the what has happened for the past year, after the change and things like that. So, and then we've seen you were part of the Media Council Pro Tem Committee, and 1 year has passed. I spoke to Premis Chandran, the founder and CEO of Malaysia Kini, who's also the Pro Tem Chairman of the committee. What is the current status? How was the last discussion with, were there any discussion with the Minister of Communications once the report has been handed to the ministry last year? And do you think that the Media Council will see the light of the day?
I mean, as a member of the press, I should remain optimistic, because yes, sorry, sneezing is a bit cool. Okay. So I should remain optimistic, because like it or not, we do have more and more media personnel who believes that Media Council is a way to go. But in the current situation, I mean, we still couldn't meet. Even our committee still couldn't meet with the minister. But there is some engagement, some sort of like very light engagement. I mean, like the ministry has contacted us to get response on the questions on our report on the media council bill, but there wasn't any more than that. I mean, I think there was like before the FCO 2.0, we have like 3 postponed dates to meet with the minister, and that was it. I mean,
it means until today there's no meeting with the minister. There's no correspondence with the minister, or even a space for.
We do have correspondence with his office, but not with the minister itself.
So until today, if it had been 1 year that the minister or the ministry has zero communication, I would say an open dialogue with the press organizations until today.
Open dialogue. No open dialogue. But the minister has been responding with us. It's just there's nothing much. There's there's no progression, like meaningful progression towards the Media Council establishment.
So you've been on the ground as a journalist and also an activist on press freedom for quite a while. I mean, probably more than a decade. So will we eventually see law reforms on freedom of the press and freedom of information? Because eventually the press freedom and freedom of information will benefit both aisles of politics. So how would you do next in order to get a bipartisan support on this issue?
For me, that depends on 2 things. The first is the political will of the government and the MPs. The second, which is for us is like more important, is the unity of press fraternity. I mean, if the press fraternity like really wanted to band themselves, or really wanted to champion the journalism ethics in the country, we can, and we will influence the powers that be, because they couldn't bully people into submission. I mean, like we have, I mean, all of us are trained. Most of us believes that in journalism, and they don't want journalism to be riddled by corruption or by political matters. I mean, you should believe that the press should be independent and should be championed by all. I mean, but the problem is there was so many. I mean, you walk down by stupid, simple things such as I don't know, maybe the belief that government still control us in a way, or maybe there are all sorts of way about having to champion one side of the fence, which is not good. I mean, but I think importantly, the media fraternity needs to have like a united stand on the matter, established, especially in the freedom of the press.
The segmented, unity, I mean, within the media fraternity itself has been, talked about for quite some time. And, it's been, people are looking at themselves at whether you are mainstream, whether you are print, whether you're online, it's all separated. It also provides that sort of an opening for those who would usually attack or even manipulate media for this kind of thing. So from press freedom, right, I would like to segue to the current business model for newsrooms. So we are seeing new news portals popping up over the last year, and in some media organizations, there have been some changes of ownership as well. What is your view about media monopoly, and should media organizations be transparent with the readers about who funds them, or whether businesses or political links influence or may interfere in the newsroom independence? What's your take about it, Radzi?
I mean, we do think that yes, transparency is the key to get the public to trust you. I mean, you would do that, and once you are transparent on it, then it's easier for you to do your job. I mean, like for example, Indonesia, they have this like law that have to say that who owns what press, and there are several people being banned from owning a press. Although there's a disconnection on it, but all in all, it's better than having this some sort of shadow monopoly on media by several people.
Or several proxies
And
that we never know, those
yes,
lurking
and
in the shadows.
yes, and you must know the media doesn't only cover political news; they cover more everything else. Political reporting is like one of the really, how to say that, really unique and niche.
It's just one section, because at the end of the day, the most
Yeah,
important thing is influencing the public
yes,
opinion that changes the policy that may benefit certain businesses.
yeah, and news reporting is much more than that. I mean, that should be a problem, even if you say that, oh, this owner is leaning towards a political party. But if the matter, but a good editor of a media, and the media itself, if they are free and transparent, would report on things that matters to the public. So I think that being transparency is really the key on having it, and to make people trust the media again.
All right, Razi, moving forward, while we are still in the midst of the emergency ordinance and also COVID-19 pandemic, what are you hoping to see a change in the media landscape moving?
I think the most important part is to get the sense of unity back. I mean, you have to be vocal about it. I mean, we get lots of complaint from members of the media, but there wasn't like a concerted effort to help. Most of the matter could be resolved with just a statement or a reply from the business owner or the politician, be to basically to make the matter better, to reply. Say that, for example, there's a minister who's like complaining about media headlines from Malaysia Kini, though the utusan like basically do the same headline, like the same wording and all. So this could easily be rectified by having a fair mind and like but ran by other media fraternity defending their brothers. I mean, like, the question of headlines as a very small matter compared to the way that some media is doing their reporting without due diligence and adhering to the journalism ethics. So I think the most important thing for now during the emergency is to get to have the sense of unity over media practitioners and media fraternity, the journalists, the editors, the photographers, everyone to be together on the same page on things that stop them from working as a media personnel.
As Perikatan Nasional celebrates their 1 year of the administration, what would you say to the administrators, especially to the government today, when it comes to, as you mentioned, as you rightly pointed out, the access to information and freedom of access to information, the right information as well, is very crucial in the fight of the COVID-19 pandemic. What would you say to the government of the day?
I mean, we do have like some of the ministers like pledging that they will respect and they will help the freedom of the media. We have the minister, Dato' Saiful Abdullah, on last year's press freedom day, like once again pledging that he will ensure that the media freedom is not affected. I mean, that's if that are their pledges, then they should adhere. That's all, because they already said that. And you can't blame the media if you didn't, if you didn't keep your promises, kept your pledges. So that's, I mean, it's not that none of them saying that they will stop the media. None of them is saying that they will restrict the media. So just follow what you say. That's all I'm asking for the government.
All right. Thank you so much, Radzi, for sharing your thoughts, for looking at the 1 year after the Sheraton Move, 1 year on. And then the following year, there will be a lot of uncertainties as political dramas unfolds in the country. Thank you so much for joining me, Radzi.
Yeah, thank you, Roman.
Listen to the full podcast of Bicara Minggu Ini on Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at I'mNonGo for the latest updates on current affairs and stories.